because we spent however many years in the service working for other people, building other things. And now having that conversation over and over again, people are like, I want to build something for myself.
Hey, welcome to Warrior Money, the show devoted to supporting our brothers and sister veterans. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
Today, too many veterans burn their post 9/11 GI Bill for degrees that do not translate into income. We have a subject matter expert, a MP sergeant from the Army, who is the CEO and founder of GuideOn, a dual-use company helping veterans and others penetrate and use their benefits the best way possible. We want to welcome you, Ashley Gorbulja, to Warrior Money. Hope you're having a great day.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about what I do with GuideOn and the big picture of how education is important to all of us while you're in the service and after sacrifice.
Yeah, you've had an incredible career, not just in uniform in Ohio National Guard, but also to be able to get 4 degrees without going debt-free. You talk about the Guard advantage. How did you accomplish that?
So it's actually 4 degrees debt-free, and I'm working on my 5th and a certificate. So that all being said, we'll back up. Having started with being in the Ohio Army National Guard, I spent a great deal of time understanding benefits. Most of my desire to join service was for community outreach that expanded through my time in high school, but also because of the recession. And so for financial reasons, I particularly stepped into more responsibility and decided that the Ohio Army National Guard was going to be the right avenue for me. I found an opportunity to pay for my state university degrees. So I was able to get 2 degrees and 2 minors. And then subsequently through community service on campus in the veteran space and through my major, I was able to then ricochet, if you will, is a very interesting trajectory, go into a master's in public health and then later on a master's in public leadership. And I'm proud to announce that I've been accepted into Johns Hopkins University for the Carey Business School, where I will be pursuing an AI certification in business. And then I have applied for my doctorate in education, entrepreneurship, and leadership, where I intend to study communication, education, and the intersection of AI policy.
That's a lot. That's a mouthful. tell us about where did the I guess the why behind that? Where does the itch come from? Where did the original inspiration to do kind of the military service and then the education behind it?
So while I was serving, I came back from my advanced individual training. I happened to take one of the best detour right turns, maybe almost caused an accident, into a parking lot at a community college satellite campus. I had some questions that needed answers. I found myself in an office speaking to what would soon become a colleague and a coworker. I was offered a job at 19 to work in higher education due to the fact that I knew a lot about benefits and arguably a little bit more than the gentleman I was speaking with. Very humbly, respectfully, he was like, I don't know anything you're talking about. You need to come work for us. And so at the age of 19, I myself working at a community college in none other than veterans benefits and administrative program assistant. And so I was working with Northeast Ohio's veteran community while I was serving and going to school, which gave me the unique acumen that I would not have thought that I would be possessing at the age of 20. And so I was exposed to everything very quickly. So I went from pre-med to community and policy and health administration and, if you will, organizational supervision and business and entrepreneurship. Next thing I know, I'm creating programs on a college campus. I'm started scholarships and I'm bringing communities and other collegial networks together in the veteran space in Northeast Ohio. And so there was this really unique turning point, but all started because I just decided to have my questions answered and took that opportunity to just kind of make that right turn into the satellite campus that completely changed my
The
trajectory.
right turn into the community college is the same right turn I think Patrick and I both made in the community colleges when we were getting our education journey started. I think it's really beautiful when you kind of take this opportunity to pivot and multiple times in your career path. What are you doing? What are you doing now?
So I am still a federal employee on top of the layeredness of being the founder and CEO of GuideOn Education Consulting. So I, in my free time, continue to and have for the past 8 years, roughly, been working with the community, largely nonprofits in the veteran military connected space. I've been able to hold a few state contracts. I've been able to do a lot of really cool things in content, curriculum, communication, strategy, and training. And so a lot of that came from my experiences working not only at the community college, but also working with small businesses in Northeast Ohio. And then one day I got a call to come work at the Department of Veteran Affairs. And that was a very happenstance phone call. They basically said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Is this a joke?" And they said, "No, what do you want to do?" And I was able to kind of kickstart my career in the federal government. And so I was able to work at the Veterans Benefit Administration, Veterans Health Administration, and work in the marketing and communications professional space. And so I was able to then have this huge federal collegial network that I was able to get information and understanding from. And so the thing that was neat about this is the American Legion played a critical role in all of this, the glue, if you shall. And so, like any good bridge, there has to be someone that's willing to help you build it. And that was the American Legion for me. And so while I
I
was on
love
my
that.
college campus, I was able to work and build a campus American Legion post. So it was an engage, educate, and employ. It was a unique premise that we could all come together around and also garner resources in the community. So it took a lot of American Legion posts that otherwise were doing what they knew best, right? And bringing us all together and then really helping veterans transition and utilize their benefits and create family programs. That
Yeah.
unintentionally led to a lot of, we'll just say, a lot of attention I didn't think that I was worthy of at the moment in time. And now I look back on it and I can't believe it all happened as quickly as it did. But next thing you know, I'm employment and education national appointee for Ohio. I'm running at my district level. And subsequently, I'm selected for an internship, 1 in 25, for the Washington Center veterans cohort. I was brought to DC on full scholarship while I was pursuing my master's in public health, where I was emphasizing and studying military programs and wellness office. And so what ends up happening is I'm sitting next to the SBA portfolio manager. I'm helping build out Centennial Agenda, you know, policies and things that I think as a GWAT veteran should be considered. And I'm still in service. I have a very interesting point of reference as a National Guardsman, as a sergeant, leading people, right? All of these things came together. And they're like, "Ashley, you should start a business." And I thought they were crazy. And so I went and I took my lunch at Lafayette Park, right across from the White House, and on a napkin, similar to how the GI Bill was written on a napkin, I wrote what I was going to do with GuideOn. It had occurred to me that I was the GuideOn bearer while I was in the, I would say, basic and AIT components of my training. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I realized that I could be a guide on whatever I wanted, and that the only limitation was myself. And so the American Legion brought all of this together and put me in this beautiful place where I could then network that led me to my position in the federal government, which also led me to create and start my own business to help others achieve their version of success.
That's awesome. Ashley,
Awesome.
we love the origin story, like the napkin and the Lafayette Park. That's awesome. But you use GuideOn to help others. Yeah. And we say dual use because it's in the private sector and the public sector, how to get, obviously public benefits. But, you basically advocate to make sure that these are brothers to veterans and their family members, that they leverage education, not just as a break-in service, but as a strategic business acquisition. Walk us through that.
Sure. So what's interesting about the education space, everyone comes in with different skills. And I remind people that we're constantly upskilling, whether we want to believe it or not. And we have choices to make. And what's great about entrepreneurship, particularly for veterans, is that when you're really passionate about solving problems, I find that once you make that step from service, you're now going into continued service. And so strategically, entrepreneurship is something I have found that many of my colleagues are drawn to. And so what happens is, as they're starting to use their education benefits, we're finding that the volunteerism starts to kick in, whether that's on campus or through the community or an apprenticeship or whatever pathway they're choosing. They're saying, wow, that's it? Only those 4 things? That's what I got to do? And I'm going to take this education now and I'm going to build my business. Like, why would I want to go work for someone else when I can work for me? Because we spent however many years in the service working for other people, building other things. And now having that conversation over and over again, people are like, I want to build something for myself. I want to have that self-actualization um, that my version of the American dream post-service. What's that look like? Is that going back to my home state? Is that going and staying where I was last stationed? And so then we start looking at state benefits. Where do you want to reside on top of the layers of what different states can offer? Offer your family, your dependents, offer me as a GI Bill student, or if I want to go back to school for the VRNE program, which is the vocational employment education program. So if I'm a service-connected disabled veteran, is that an option for me? And so we start looking at the big picture. And so those conversations started to take place in very, very small rooms. And the next thing you know, we just continue to find that folks are well suited. So that's kind of strategically how I have seen it and observed it happen. It again, it's very similar to kind of like my trajectory, but that's kind of how I've seen it play out in the community.
Yeah, we're going through a kind of an interesting time now with the advances of artificial intelligence. And there's a pretty strong thought process that formal education it needs to readjust its value proposition kind of based on the way AI is moving through. Given your education background and given what you're seeing in the market and what you're talking about, do you have an opinion about that? And most specifically, like I'm thinking about another E4, E5 that's coming out of the military or thinking about education. Like, what's the advice you're giving to them based on all the noise around AI and all the noise that we're hearing through this transition?
Well, you've nailed it. It's a lot of noise. I think that artificial intelligence has been around for quite some time. We've just given it a buzzword. We're giving it power, and as we continue to have it integrated into our daily lives, it's going to change the marketplace. It's going to change how we upskill and the human component of what we do. As someone who studied user design and course and curriculum, we can't leave people behind. So as much as AI will take us to leaps and bounds and hopefully make easier tasks simpler, right? We hope, but there's still a human component to that. And so when having that conversation with folks getting out of the service, my question would be like, what are your core values? Like what stokes your fire? What makes you mad, right? Or what's the thing that brings you joy? And if you can identify some of those core values and start aligning them with some of the skills, your passions, and you enjoy what the market needs, you can make better decisions and ensure that, you're not just taking the first thing that comes available. And that requires planning. It requires discipline. You have to put pen to paper. I know it sounds old fashioned. Yeah, you could plug it into AI, I'm sure. And yes, it could map you out some wonderful opportunities, but the AI can't do the work for you. The AI is not going to go to your business conferences and build relationships for you. Sure, it could send an email or it could maybe write your paper or response to, I don't know, a leadership forum, impromptu, whatever you want to call it, but it's not going to replace human interaction. And so as I'm seeing this in the education space, we need to take a step back and identify what is important to ourselves. Where do we want to be as far as careers go? Like, I have several people in my life that only have high school degrees that are also veterans who are crushing it in trades right now.
Oh,
They're doing wonderful.
yeah.
They're making more than my friends 10-year tenured, like
And
um
all these data centers are going to need electricians. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you look at just even with data centers, the demand is gonna increase triple within the next 15 years. So, but hey, Ashley, I tell you what, we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna come right back. We can't wait to hear about you, how you're like this debt-free sniper, And we appreciate your perspective because the majority of our 1 million soldiers are actually a reserve component, the National Guard of Reserves. And that's been your lived experience. So more to follow, more money, just after this break. Back here, Worry Money, and we have Army veteran MP Sergeant Ashley Gorbulja. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on Worry Money. Want to pick up where we left off, but we joke that you are the debt-free sniper. You have ideas on how to translate your education to make sure that it translates to income, but also how scholarships are free money. And too many of our brothers and sisters are leaving that money on the table. Walk us through that.
Sure. I think that many people take themselves out of the race before it starts, particularly in scholarships. A lot of people have an enemy with an outpost inside their head, and they think somebody else smarter, wiser, more experienced will be a better fit. I don't deserve this, right? And to the same effect of having run into veterans who are like, they leave their own like disability compensation claims on the table. While I'm a veteran, somebody else needs it more than I do, right? I see the same thing in the scholarship space. Across the board, regardless of if they're a veteran or not. It is a human thing that we do, and we take ourselves out of the race before it starts. And so with scholarships, there is ample amount of money out there. There are people who have foundations, philanthropic, I can't think of the word, missions, philanthropic missions to support higher education, support veterans, support maybe whatever your major is or whatever you're pursuing, whether that's an internship, a fellowship, I need a scholarship for my master's program. I don't qualify for FAFSA. I don't want to take out a loan. My sagest advice that I can give to folks, having spent hours of calculating how to put these things together, is think about who you are, your values, what your aim educationally is, and the big picture. Like, if I had just said, I want to get X degree, that's not enough. It's like, I want to get X degree to solve this problem. Here's how I'm going to contribute. And here's what I can do. But here's what I'm doing on campus. Here's what I'm doing in my community. Here's why it's important to me and my family. Or here's my service story, and translate that into something that folks can really grab onto. And I say this in the kindest way possible, but like if you're not willing to put yourself out there, you're not going to get those opportunities. And that's, again, a lot of what in business and money, and you got to start speaking it out into the ether in order to attract some of it. And I can tell you the first time
there's an organization called the Justmere Foundation that Patrick and I know pretty well that serves that mission set that you're talking about. And I think the conversation, the intimacy of your conversation, if you listen to any of our Warrior Money before, or even Tango Alpha Lima, like, it is about finding your purpose and aligning your purpose to people or things that might actually want to give you the opportunity to serve that purpose, right? So I think what I'm hearing from you is there are opportunities. You have to be aligned to that opportunity. And then once you're aligned to that opportunity, don't take yourself out of it, because that gives you the opportunity to play. Are we hearing you right? Is that what our audience is hearing you right saying?
Absolutely. Get organized, get disciplined, start tracking them, get letters of recommendation from individuals that you trust. Plan ahead. A lot of folks want to wait till the last minute. If you even know that your GI Bill is going to run out the next fall, you should be planning the spring prior. You need to know when deadlines are. You need to be proactive. I can tell you firsthand, like, the moment that I knew I wasn't going to be able to cover my last semester because I double majored, and I went into research mode. I had a whole life binder. I mean, ridiculous life binder that I used to throw on my back and bring everywhere I went. And it had all my tabs and all the things I was doing. And every month I was working towards that goal. And so all in all, between, let's see, first master's, second master's, and bachelor's degrees, it's almost about just shy of like $200,000. That's a crazy number. I know, between little scholarships that add up. And what was nice too is there were some scholarships that when I wrote into them and I explained to them, hey, I'm extending my degree, I'm going to go do this, and this. They said, hey, we actually have extra money over. And so actually, there were times where people just
That's
sent me more
awesome.
money. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
oh my
awesome.
God. I was like, what can I
Yeah, I
do
think
for you? Like, how can I?
Patrick and I both fund a scholarship at the different schools, or scholarship or fellowship at the both different. I do one at community college I went to, and I think Patrick does one at Widener Law. And the thing about that is I so rarely hear from the people that I give scholarships to, that I wish they would reach out to me and like, hey, like that was cool, and then maybe they get another $500. Like that's to me makes sense.
Absolutely. While I was pursuing my second master's in public leadership out of University of San Francisco, I was approached. Yeah, I know you know Patrick, and I was approached about the program, and I said I have no GI Bill. I don't think VRNE will cover this. I don't think this is going to be an avenue for me. But they were like, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Well, absolutely, I want to do it." And so I explained my situation. I advocated. I wrote in a few letters, and I was able to get that entire degree paid for. And I remember reaching out to Craig Newmark. And I remember just like messaging him. I was like, listen, anytime you're in DC, I just want to buy you a cup of coffee. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for providing an avenue for veterans like myself who believe in public service and would love to run for public office one day. This is life changing. And I was able to meet amazing people through the University of San Francisco and from the Second Search Institute or Institute of Second Search,
Yeah.
excuse me. They've said so.
And the University of San Francisco is one of the 26 Jesuit college universities across America. So they're way better than Georgetown in Washington. But hey, actually, I love the fact that you're obviously at VA headquarters, hooking and jabbing for brothers and sisters, but you're also in the private sector as the founder of GuideOn. But you're also an incredible advocate as well. You started, as Miss Veteran America. You host your own podcast, Tango Alpha Lima, that's sponsored by the American Legion. Walk us through that advocacy career or drive.
Absolutely. So if you can believe it, it started in a prison in Ohio. Fun. I love starting my story that way. Anyway, I digress. I was serving in the National Guard, and my first sergeant happened to be assistant warden. He was like, "Hey, Ash, I need some help. We're trying to run a military leadership program in this women's prison in Cleveland." And it happened to be right around the corner from my work. I spent about 4 years building military leadership programs in a women's prison that has now been adopted in other prisons in Ohio. While going to school and serving and doing all of this other stuff that we've talked about, I
You want something done?
found my
Ask a busy
passion.
person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I step into that? Well, I was just provided opportunities and I took them. I was just like, I'm going to figure it out. And so when I decided to run for Miss Veteran America, it was about understanding that there were women who were couch surfing, trying to take care of their families on the verge of homelessness, who were veterans, who were underserved. And so in Ohio, I was serving on different boards and helping uh, bring together homeless women veterans shelter, specific what were women's resources and needs, and then more things just kind of kept compiling. Next thing you know, I'm getting calls and I'm being asked to sit on these representative and board meeting discussions. And then next thing you know, the American Legion's calling me. They're like, "Hey, Ashley, we're working on this. We need someone to help us with proponent testimony for Ohio Women Veterans Celebration Day for June 12th. And I said, send me. Let's do it." And I remember sleeping in my car the night before. I had come from another event and I woke up and I drove myself to the Capitol building and I gave that proponent testimony, and it surely it passed. And so there were just all of these little micro things that I kept saying yes to that were aligned with me, that kept bringing into more opportunities. And so by the time I found my way out in DC, I had going to different events, supporting different veteran nonprofits in the area. The American Legion had reached out to me. They said, "Ashley, we can't think of anybody better to help us start this podcast for intergenerational communication across our service members and veterans and families." And I said, yes. And so that was 4 years of podcasts and interviewing people, from walking down Veterans Day Parade to in New York City to being able to walk the black line in front of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and pay my respects as the first 30 to do it, to write for the American Legion to preserve history and Americanism and principle, to, gosh, I just so many opportunities. People just kept inviting me to the table too. They were like, hey, you show up consistent. So
Right. It's
kinda
kind of
how it
like,
happened.
yeah, it's kind of like having an abundance mindset, right? You're like, hey, listen, if you see it, you can do it. I even love your motto that I will, watch me. But a lot of folks would love to be podcast hosts, right? You are one of the larger ones at Tango Alpha Lima, again, sponsored by the American Legion. What is that like? When do you air? How can people find you? Walk us through that real quick.
Absolutely. So the American Legion podcast, been going now, I think 5, now 6 seasons. We're crushing it. And we've also been able to do special series. And that's where I come in. I've been able to handle special topics because I'm a nerd. And there are plenty of episodes where I am a self-proclaimed nerd, where I've been able to dive into topics such as entrepreneurship. So just this past September, we did a 4-part series exploring what I refer to as the messy middle in business. So it's past the business basics, and it's I'm not conforming to the same scaling because I'm not doing the same thing everybody else is. And so we interviewed folks from food industry, food consumer foods. We've got e-commerce. It was real estate, and then we did trades. And so prior to those conversations, we were like, how do we talk about folks in these spaces in a more meaningful way past just the cool, you got your LLC and I love your logo and go to this networking and take a photo and send it on LinkedIn. And it was like, no, I want to hear from people who have been in business for greater than, anywhere from 3 to 5 years, who have had to make hard choices. And so that type of content was easily picked up by the Legion. That we think is amazing. And, in past, we've done women's history, a special series. I've been able to do a special series on military sexual trauma and meet different individuals from cross-section audiences and have hard conversations. And to date, one of the episodes from that series was the largest grossing downloads at all time right now. It's about like 28,000 downloads. And
Wow.
it was out the LGBTQ plus community in the veteran space. It was phenomenal. And I think a lot of people were just curious because it's not something that they can have a conversation in their American Legion post about, right? And so,
I get that. Yeah. You create a safe space for somebody to have a
yeah,
conversation.
these are
Yeah.
things.
Well, Ashley
And so I
Gorbulja,
would encourage
it has been an
anyone.
honor for us to have you on Where Your Money. Thank you so much for joining us. You are the debt-free sniper. We love the fact that you let people know that make sure that they're getting their bang for their buck, to leverage that post-9 GI Bill, the benefits they've earned, and to do it in a way that's going to translate the income. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to wrap it up with Ashley Gorbulja. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on Where Your Money. That's our show, but make sure you check us out wherever you get your podcasts. That includes Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and of course, our website, Yahoo Finance. For this week's episode, I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze. We'll see you again next week.
All right, Ashley Gorbulja, thank you so much for joining us on Where Your Money. You are a great American. We appreciate you. You truly are the debt-free sniper. So make sure you catch us wherever you get your podcasts, including Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever, but also on Yahoo Finance. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze. We'll see you again next week.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.